Purchase your raffle ticket today and win a new truck in our Drive Away for Education truck raffle.
That's a great segue into we are welcoming in our good buddy, our coworker, Dave Campbell's Texan Live content coordinator and play-by-play extraordinaire, Trevor Bullard. We call him T-Pup around these parts, but Trevor we talked about it earlier, and I don't know if he's listening, so I guess I'll say it real fast while he's on it. We know a lot of people that cover the Houston area when it comes to Texas high school football, but I genuinely don't know if I know another person that is more passionate about Houston, Texas high school football than this kid is. So that's why we knew we had to have him on WTF. He's probably tired of dealing with us, but here he is talking to us. Trevor, first off, we know plenty about you, but Tell the viewers a little bit about you and how you got into the sports business and how you ended up here working with us goofballs.
Well, graduated from SFA, Axe and Jacks. Needed a job in sports broadcasting, so I started out at K-Gas radio station in Carthage. Did that for a year. I'm from Houston, from Katy originally, so wanted to be closer to some parents live in San Antonio now, but wanted to be closer to people I knew. So was looking around and asked our buddy Jesse Wolf if they were hiring, and they just happened to be, and drove down for an interview, and the rest is history.
And now he's stuck here dealing with us every week. What a lucky fella. So
lucky's a strong word, I'd say.
So Trevor, I want to go back for a minute. Let's go back to February. I know you're just as much of a high school football nerd as we are, and realignment, gets you just as excited as it gets us to look at the new matchups, to look at the new districts, to see how the scope of high school football is shaping out. There was some movement down. There's not always a ton of movement down in the Houston area, but there was some. I mean, Katy Pato moving up, that kind of stuff. When you look where we're at now to back then at realignment, was there anything at realignment you were super excited to see how it was going to shake out? Did any of that kind of come into fruition as the year went on for you?
Well, I guess you could say so, because, you had that Barbers Hill and Crosby moved up, and then they got stuck in Region 2 with, Longview, the Frisco schools. Trying to think who else is in Region 2. You have, Lancaster out there. And I thought, okay, this is going to be some interesting playoff matchups. We got to see that. I mean, Crosby had to go all the way up to Longview in round 1. Barbers Hill ended up playing Timberview last week. Even though it's not Houston area, Port Arthur Memorial's in that district, and they had to go up to Lufkin last week, and they have to go up to Lufkin this week. So I thought that was really interesting. In 5A and then in 6A, not too much change. Pato moved up. Katy ISD kind of turned out to be an old hat with Tompkins, Cinco, Katy. It was good to see Morton Ranch get in there too, but I mean, not too much change in the bigger classifications, but I did like to see that kind of. I mean, we almost could have had an all Houston state championship in 5A, which would have been really weird, but is what it is.
Trev, it's Mel Powell here. How you doing?
Doing good.
Were there any teams, now let's go back to the very beginning of this season. Were there any teams that you take a look at now that may not be in the playoffs yet, or may not be in the playoffs right now, but maybe kind of shocked you as the year went on?
Well, I'll tell you what, and Katy Jordan really surprised me. They played that outlaw schedule last year. Moved up into 6A, moved up into the tough Katy ISD district, and you know what? They beat a lot of good teams. They played Morton Ranch. That final game of the regular season turned out to be for a playoff spot. So I would look at that Warrior squad for next year. They'll be tested, and they can make a push into the playoffs, especially with Morton Ranch losing a lot of seniors. It'd be real fun to see a second-year program already in the playoffs.
So let's flip the script there. That was, a new program that I agree, was one of the more happily surprising programs. Are there any teams that at the beginning of the year you thought, hey, they're going to have one heck of a season that I'm not going to say, maybe not disappointed you a little, but maybe didn't live up to the expectations that you had built up in your mind before the season had started?
Well, I kind of thought Cy Ranch, Bridgeland lost Connor Wigman. Cy Ranch had a lot returning. I mean, they made the playoffs, but I thought they'd be a deeper team than just a first round out. And I guess they're kind of disappointed. I expect them honestly to be playing someone like Duncanville or Waxahachie this week.
And then, obviously, there are the name brands. There's 15 Houston area squads still left in the playoffs that will be playing this weekend. When you take a look at who's left, there's some of those notorious North Shore, Katy, blah, blah, blah. In your opinion, with who's left in the Houston area, who do you think has the best shot to make it to AT&T Stadium? And not only make it there, but bring the hardware back to H-Town.
Okay, so I'm going to be a homer here and say Katy.
Mm-hmm. Could have called that one.
Yeah, but they have Summer Creek they gave them a lot last year, and Summer Creek could, if upset Katy this week, it wouldn't shock me. But I think Katy's kind of your favorite. I mean, they've been the favorite in the Houston area for like almost 30 years now. So, North Shore, I'm going to go with the bold pick. I kind of think Atascocita, if Atascocita can get past Ridgepoint, I think Atascocita could end up beating them second time around.
Well, that would make Gavin Moritz very happy.
It would, yeah.
All right, let's talk about players here for a second. It's no secret that there is no shortage of an immense amount of talent down there in H-Town. Now, of course, you've got your David Hicks Jr. over there at Pado, DJ Lagway at Willis. But what I'm interested in is I'm interested in hearing your point of view on what are some of those players that you saw this season that really exploded into somebody who really helped their team or led their team into a good spot.
Well, talking about Westfield with PJ Hatter, he came over from Klein Oak. Mm-hmm. He was replacing a 3-year starter, and he looked. I remember doing the high power game in week 2, and he was awesome. I mean, him and DJ Palomo. That's been a really lethal combination down there at Westfield. Both of them. I mean, Westfield's, for me, it always seems like his defense, but their offense has been just awesome, explosive this year.
And I got to ask, too, now we're going to do a segment here on Women Talking Football in a bit where we're basically kind of doing a fantasy football draft of the Houston area. Now, you just said it. There's a lot of great defensive players out there. In your opinion, what would you say is probably the most talented position group down there in Austin? You can be defensive backs, offensive line, quarterbacks, running backs. What position group has stood out to you in the Houston area this year?
I mean, I'm going to have to probably go defensive line. Westfield offensive explosive, but they still have a great defensive line. We know how great North Shore is on that D line. Just have fun going up against that.
Good
and
luck
then
to
someone
anybody
like
that goes up against that.
Katy and Summer Creek both have really great defensive lines as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I gotta ask you one final question here. You had quite a call was it Friday?
Yeah, it was Friday.
Last Friday night. Run us through what your Friday night looked like.
Well, so Christian Venegas and I had to go do Kilgore and El Campo. And then hightail it there from Randall Reed, get on 59 and head up to Lufkin. Made it with an hour to spare. Get everything set up, and Wakeland scored their first touchdown. They were going back and forth in the first half, and I'm like, all right, this game's going to get pretty good. Fourth quarter comes along. I'm like, okay, Memorial's going to score here, go to overtime. They don't. And Wakeland gets the ball back. They're moving. Just run the clock out. Memorial gets the ball with like a minute left, and then they throw a crazy play that sends it to overtime. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go one overtime or something. Someone will go for 2, and then we can go home. We were there for another hour.
Jeez. 4 overtimes. What a time. He is Trevor Bullard. He's our content coordinator and play-by-play extraordinaire for Dave Campbell's Texan Live, a lover of all things Houston. T-Pup, man, thanks so much for joining us, and we are what games do you have this week?
I have Kilgore Lindale over in Tyler Friday at 1, and then Christian and I have to go back to Lufkin for Port Arthur Memorial again, but this time they're playing Longview, so we're going to see how that goes.
It should be a good one. Hear his calls on TexanLive.com, not just for football, but all the rest of the year for all the sports to come. Teep up, be careful, go into your basketball game tonight, and have fun, man.
Thanks, y'all.